applications will really just be for, people who've had a serious brain injury, like where it's like the value of the implant would be enormous, because obviously the early implants will come with some non-trivial risk. And so it's going to be like, okay, does the good far outweigh the bad? And then, that would be a candidate for some of the initial surgeries with full disclosure of like these little risks and everything. And one of the things we're really paying close attention to is the ability to remove the implant. So it's not like, if somebody doesn't want it or it's not working, we can take it out and then we can reimplant another one. So we've tested implantation, removal, and reimplantation, and it works great.
Sorry, Mark. Switching topic. Yeah, please. So switching topics. So Elon, as I mentioned kids earlier, as it turns out, I have a very bright and inquisitive 5-year-old who is crawling all over everything and trying to figure everything out and learning as much as he can, as fast as he can. Like, what, with everything that we know now and kind of all the modern tools that we have, like, what's the best way to think about educating a 5-year-old in today's world?
Sorry, the best way to educate a 5-year-old?
Yeah, educate a 5-year-old and then think about kind of his education over the course of the next, 5 or 10 years. Like, what kind of program ideally should you think a kid should be on?
Well, my observation is my kids were mostly educated by YouTube and Reddit, and then and their, I guess, classmates and I guess there were lessons as well, but judging by the amount of time they spent online, it seemed like most of their education is actually coming from online. I think generally with education, you want to make it as interesting and exciting as possible. I've said, like, what are some of the, like, if you see, like what are all the things, like, say, a good video game does to keep someone engaged and interested? If kids can be super engaged in video games, I think there's a way for them to be super engaged in education as well. Like, one of the things that's, I think, very fundamental is to explain the why of things. Like, so we're teaching you this, but we're going to explain why we're teaching you this and why it is relevant. We've evolved to forget things that are irrelevant or have low relevance probability. It makes sense. Like, otherwise we'd remember all sorts of nonsense things that weren't very important to our future. So unless relevance is established clearly, then people will have a hard time remembering it by its nature, because it appears to be irrelevant. It might be relevant, but if it's not explained to them, they won't know. And then if you want to have some sort of if you're trying to say problem solving, some sort of engaging narrative for the problem solving, like, it's far better to say, okay, we're going to teach you how an engine works by taking apart an engine and then putting it back together, and then let's find out what tools are needed in order to take this engine apart, put it back together. It's like, okay, we need screwdrivers and wrenches and Allen keys, and we need a winch, and a bunch of other things, and then you understand the relevance, and it's much more of an interesting problem. This is much better than having, say, a course on wrenches or a course on screwdrivers. You just start with a problem and say, what tools I need to solve this problem. That establishes relevance and gives a compelling narrative thread.
Yeah, it seems like you could kind of, if you had sort of elaborate enough projects, you could roll a huge number of topics into that ultimately kind of combine into a single project with some really actually interesting form of output. For example, building literally building a vehicle or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. You have a narrative thread, or like, why is it all established relevance, and there's a story to it, and then you say, like, well, if you can't turn that bolt without the wrench, and then, like, let's see, how can we make this engine better? What do we need to do? Okay, well, let's calculate, if it's a gasoline engine, how do you get to a higher RPM or a better compression ratio? I'm using like outdated analogy of engines, but you can say for an electric motor, what steps would you need to take to get higher torque, and pull higher power out of this electric motor? you know, and then you can explain. It's obvious why, you know, things like Maxwell's equations become necessary in that situation. Yeah.
Yeah. That'd be amazing. Great.
Yeah. Elon, you would not believe the number of parents and people with kids who have asked us about tonight. And I think there are two questions that are connected. One is, you know, how do kids, if you're having a kid and you want teacher to become a polymath like you have become, what advice you have for parents? And the next one is, here you are with, you know, so many companies that you've created that I can't even list them off the top of my head. Why doesn't the world have, and this doesn't mean to sound, you know, psychopathic, but why doesn't the world have more Elon Musks?
Well, I don't know. I might be getting too much credit here. So, I mean, for me, these things I've done have been because I felt a strong compulsion to do them. So it's not like nobody was pushing me to do it, but they're just like I felt a strong compulsion to do them. I mean, I wouldn't say, you know, there are pretty long sections of my life that have been very painful and difficult, and I'm not sure people would want to do that, you know. There's yeah. If somebody wants to be me or do the things I've done, I would say most probably you're mistaken. You do not want to do that. You'd have to have some kind of like rage demon in your skull that you just got to get it done. It's like when people ask me like, what encouraging words do you have for entrepreneurs who want to do a startup? And my response is, if you need encouraging words, don't do a startup. Yeah, I quote my friend Billy, doing a startup is like eating glass and staring into the abyss. Yep, for a long time.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. We're going to switch topics just a second, but I think for everyone in the audience who just caught up and managed to squeeze in, just a quick reset/recap. This is the one and only Elon Musk for his first time on Clubhouse, and this is a show that we do every single day. I know a lot of you are trying to get in the room. There are a bunch of overflow rooms. See if we can get in there. But we're just having an amazing conversation with Elon. Elon, okay. This is something you joked about, but I'm kind of curious to get your, maybe serious answer to this, which is all things cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. You famously just changed your Twitter bio to just the Bitcoin logo and the word Bitcoin this week. What do you think of cryptocurrency? What do you think of Bitcoin? What do you think of other cryptocurrencies? We'd love to get your take on the entire thing.
Well, yeah, I gotta watch what I say here because some of these things can really move the market. So, first of all, I should say, like, many friends of mine have tried to convince me to get involved in Bitcoin for a long time, like from when it first just popped out there. And my friend, my bully, he actually had Bitcoin cake, a cake that was like had a big sort of Bitcoin symbol on it, and he fed me a slice of Bitcoin cake in 2013. So, I mean, clearly, I should have at least bought some Bitcoin 8 years ago. Like, what more do people need to do? Like, Jesus, talk about being late. Talk about being late to the party. So I was a little slow on the uptake there. My apologies. But I think about it a fair bit. But I do at this point think Bitcoin is a good thing. So I am a supporter of Bitcoin. Like I said, I'm late to the party, but I'm a supporter of Bitcoin. And I think Bitcoin is really on the verge of getting broad acceptance by sort of the conventional finance people. So yeah, I think so. I don't have a strong opinion on other cryptocurrencies. I mean, occasionally I make jokes about Dogecoin, but they are really just meant to be jokes. But Dogecoin was made as a joke to make fun of cryptocurrencies, obviously. But fate loves irony, and often as a friend of mine says, the most ironic outcome is most likely, or as I like to say, the most entertaining outcome is often most likely. And arguably, the most entertaining outcome and the most ironic outcome would be that Dogecoin becomes the currency of Earth in the future.
Oh my God. Elon, when you tweeted me this afternoon, I will say my tweet replies have been overwhelmed by probably like a zillion different like cryptocurrency coins. But yeah, and by the way, you might remember the infamous time when your replies were filled with cryptocurrency bots on Twitter.
Oh my God, it was insane. Yeah.
That was actually how Elon and I actually wound up meeting, because that was a very painful